This past month at Chapping Theology, we started to talk about the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, which I'm sure many of you have read. It's a book of letters written from an uncle to its nephew. The only crazy twist is that both of them are demons, fallen angels. The Screwtape is the experienced uncle who is trying to train the younger Wormwood in the craft of deception, division, discouragement, and diversion. And the works of Satan and demons is most often very subtle and hard to notice. And so in this context, especially with the readings from Genesis and from the Gospel today, I would like us to take a look at the tactics of the devil in our lives. The devil attacked Adam and Eve, and won. The devil attacked Jesus, and didn't. And the devil attacks each one of us, but oftentimes in the most subtle of ways. I know talking about the devil can be unsettling. But here's the reality. If we're not aware of the devil's tactics, not just in the world, but in our own particular lives, we will forever end up like Adam and Eve, ever falling into temptations. So, what is one of the first tactics of the devil? It is diversion. Diverting us from our true goal of heaven, keeping our mind and our actions off of our hope for salvation. Our basic goal in life is what? To live with God now and to be with Him in the next. But the simple solution for Satan, and again it's very simple, is to keep us off track, to divert us by making us have other goals that are prioritized in life, by getting us to have other gods, lowercase g, in our life, that end up trumping Almighty God. So I think we all say this at some point of our lives, and I know I do probably more often. But when we say we're too busy to pray, or we're too busy to go to Mass every Sunday, or we're too busy to read the Bible daily, that's a sign that we've lost sight of our end goal. Because our actions are showing that God is not a priority. Our relationship with God is not a priority. And it's a sign that we've become probably a little too absorbed in our own selves, to our lives, and to worldly things, even if many of them are good things, like work, like relationships. But that's a win for the devil, because we've been diverted, right, from focusing on our main goal. So what's another diversion? Many of us worry too much. Anxieties and fears take too much control in our lives. We can worry about 1,000 things, right? But then, what are we not worrying about? Again, salvation and even our own judgment at the end of our lives. That's what Satan wants. Focus and worry about all the small things, and then you don't even worry about the judgment at the end of our lives. He's made us forget to be vigilant on the here and the now. He wants to even divert us from our Lenten practices, telling us things, oh, well, you can change them because it's too hard. Or just give it a little bit. It's really not that important. It's amazing how we can be diverted just a little bit to start changing the way that we think. And at the heart of all diversion is the fact that the devil wants us to focus on our base human desires. Hunger, thirst, passions, desires. Rather than focus on more important things. Our spiritual life, our soul, moral decisions, relationships. In the first chapter of the Screwtape Letters, there's a man a British museum who doesn't really believe in God, doesn't really have any kind of relationship with him. And he begins to think, what if this is all there is? He starts thinking about life, about meaning. And Screwtape tells Wormwood, if I was a lesser tempter, I would have panicked, because he's starting to think about questions that leads you towards God, that leads you towards eternity. Jesus is right there at his elbow saying, hey, keep thinking, this is good. Keep thinking about life and about your future. And as a demon, he would have panicked. But he said, I knew better. All I knew was I just had to take control of his appetites and put in his mind, oh, sir, this is a very important question you need to reflect on. But you don't want to think about this on an empty stomach. Go and have a good lunch, and then we can think about it later. And then what? He goes out, he's distracted by the cars, by lunch, by his busy work schedule, and he doesn't come back to that question again. And did Satan not do the same thing with even Jesus today? In the gospel, he tries to get Jesus to be overcome by his hunger. 40 days he hasn't eaten. I get hungry after 45 minutes. Jesus went 40 days. And so the devil attacked even Jesus' human desire for food and wanted him to succumb to hunger. And he says no. The devil attacks our desires and wants us to be controlled even by our stomachs, by our desires, by our passions. And all those things divert us from the most important things, mainly, again, God and eternity. These are just a couple examples, but think about how you are being diverted. It can be the most simplest things, but recognize how you are being actively diverted and then write them down. Because the devil's going to use these against you again. He's not that creative. He knows our weaknesses and will continue to attack. And once you recognize what ways you are being diverted, say, okay, this is my plan about how I'm going to reprioritize, reorient, and get back on the direction that you need to be. What is the next tactic? Division. Greek word, diaboline, diabolical, means to divide, to tear, to cut. His desire for each one of us is to break us and to divide us. Within ourselves, first and foremost, and then our relationships, and then our parish, and then our community, our workplace, our country. And when he divides and alienates, then we get destroyed. The way he causes division, one of the main ways, is by getting us to believe in certain lies about ourselves or about the world. So what happens when sin reigns inside of us? We commit a sin. We've been struggling with a sin. We often can experience feelings of hypocrisy, feelings of shame, feelings of insufficiency. And some of those are very natural responses to sin. But the devil can use those initial feelings and begin to twist them, to turn them. What else can he use? Anger, past hurts, resentments. He can use fears and misunderstandings between people. He can use our greed, our pride, our arrogance. The devil can tap into all of these things and say, hey, this is who you are. This is who you'll always be. You'll never be able to get away from this. It's easy to think once we hold on to a lie in our lives for so long, well, I'm always going to be an angry person. I'm always going to be impatient. I'm always going to struggle with sexual sin. I'm always going to be a hypocrite. Oh, I'm never going to have a good relationship with my father or my back to having a relationship with my children again. You know what all of those things are? Lies. Okay? They're all lies that the devil has begun to nudge at the moment that these things entered into our lives. And then we've begun to believe them. And then we are bound by them. But these lies come from the father of lies. The next tactic that is connected to that is deception. The great deceiver, the cunning serpent. Jesus says in John 8:44, the devil was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks according to his own nature. He is a liar and the father of lies. That's what the devil feeds us all the time. Lies. And we believe them. And he loves when we cling to lies in our lives. And when we hold on to them, then he utilizes them over time to stifle us, to silence us, again to divide us, and to continue to bind us in sin. So what do I mean? We all believe in lies about ourselves. It's not always obvious because we can become so accustomed to things and the way we think and the way we live and the way we are that we don't even notice anymore. So think about this. Oftentimes something happens to us as a child, as a kid, maybe junior high. We had a moment where we felt rejected. Or our parents, they didn't tell us something. They may have inferred that we are not smart. Maybe your parents showed more love to another sibling, or that's how you interpreted it. Maybe your mom or your dad left at a young age, and you remember feeling rejected. I remember 2 out of my 3 sisters were brilliant. They never tried at school, they made all straight A's. I would study 3 hours and I would make a C, maybe a B. So I concluded, even though my parents never told me this, that I was not smart. So I put all my focus in scouts and sports, thinking that's how I'm going to make it, that's how I'm going to succeed. But I connected intelligence only with grades. But it's a simple lie from early on that changes the way we act and think in the future. Think about maybe later on. What if you failed at something in high school and it stuck with you? What if your first adventures in college or in your 20s, you messed up? What if your best friend gossiped about you? Or you were sexually manipulated or abused? Or you experienced a traumatic event? Or you committed a sin that you felt even today that you can't forgive yourself? Look, all kinds of stuff happens to us. As a child, to the age that you are now. And those experiences, or something that someone may have told us, can begin to make conclusions in our noggin. And the devil can twist it and say, hey, you're worthless. And then we say, I am worthless. I'm not valuable. I'll never be enough. I'm ugly. I'm inadequate. I don't have what it takes. People will reject me if they actually knew my past. I'll never be loved conditionally because my spouse left me. I'm hopeless. I'm a failure. I'm unknown. I will always be alone. I'll never measure up. I'm not good enough. People will try to control me if I just give them an ounce of my own trust. I'll never trust my spouse again. I'll never forgive my father for what he did to me. These people deserve hell for what they've done. What are these? Huh? These are lies. Look at what Satan told Eve. Did God really tell you? You most certainly will not die. No, when you eat of it, you will become like gods. He twists everything into a lie. And then how easy is it for us to believe in it and live in it? Why? Why do we allow ourselves to believe? He uses our experiences, our brokennesses, what people have told us to tell us lies about ourselves, and then we grow accustomed to believing it, and then we're bound by it. Figure out what these lies are in your life. Because we all have them. And I want you in prayer to write those things down. And to say, I renounce, I rebuke, and I reject the lie of X. I renounce, I rebuke, I reject this lie of X. And in response, say, I am a child of God. I am a beloved son or daughter. My identity is in Jesus Christ. I have been made worthy. I have been made beautiful. I have been forgiven by Christ. I have been made just by the righteous act of Jesus Christ. And this is not some hippy-dippy, granola, psychobabble self-help thing. This is not a negative talk that, we're just supposed to think positively about ourselves. It's about the lies that the devil's taught us and about the truth that we've been given in Christ Jesus himself. We have to recognize the tactics that the devil works on us. But there's no need to be afraid, y'all. We have Christ who went to the desert and said, hey, it's not going to work on me, and it's not going to work on the people who are faithful to me. Literally, there's nothing for us to worry about. But if we don't worry about the tactics, then the devil will continue to win. So reflect this week as we begin Lent. What are the tactics that the devil is working on you? Write up a battle plan and fight. We are not alone. We are in the desert this Lent, and I hope that you are ready to fight.